Emotional stuff, it looks like, Colin and Justin. That's Jim Gilrain. Right. And we'll just explain, this is a project with the homeless charity Spear, and they're various celebrities who've opened their homes for 2 weeks for somebody who's homeless. And you, Jim Gilrain, who's aged 34, arrived at your house. So tell us about Jim and how he ended up being homeless.
Jim had been homeless for 18 years as a consequence of a huge amount of things that happened in his life, and he was a raging alcoholic. He'd been alcohol dependent at 2 bottles of vodka per day plus 6 cans of fortified lager, and he came into our life as part of an experiment to see if we could provide him with a platform to tell his story. And we listened for 2.5 weeks as Jim's life unravelled in front of us.
Why did you say yes?
Why?
I think we're interested in homes, you know. I think we arrive in the nation's houses and we hopefully turn them into homes, you know. So that concept's really appealing to us, about your home being a space where you feel secure, you feel safe, you know. It's a place where you create memories and where you celebrate your family, you know. And to actually have someone who had been a rough sleeper, you know, that, just think about that, a rough sleeper for 18 years. In Britain today, this guy sleeps at the back of M&S, at the back of the shopping mall, in a tent, and has never actually had a home for the last 18 years. You know, so actually it blew our minds that that exists, and we thought, well, why would we say no when we can actually help someone tell their story, and hopefully that will then, you know, get people to actually act on it and do something about it.
How did you deal with the fact he was an alcoholic? Because obviously you knew that before he arrived. Did you have to kind of clear a drink out of the house?
Yeah, we did. I mean, we worked with alcohol bodies, doctors and nurses, a psychologist and a psychiatrist, because neither Colin or myself are alcohol counsellors. So we had to bring in as much counsel for ourselves about how to deal with the problem. And the consensus was that we should take the alcohol away from our home so that we didn't expose Jim to too many kind of temptations. So we emptied our wine cupboard, you know, we hid everything that we had in our basement, and we tried to start off on an even playing field. And I have to tell you, it was one of the toughest things that we've ever done, because homelessness is a colossal problem in Britain. Add in the huge dependency on alcohol, and we had a crisis in our hands. We had Jim Gilrain homeless for 18 years with one of the most unfortunate past life stories, and we tried to deal with all of that as much as we possibly could.
But the problem is, you can't make the guy go, as you say, you know, you've got to be an expert when you're doing something like this and dealing with this sort of alcohol dependency. You can't make him go cold turkey.
You know, absolutely, you know, and he actually was alcohol dependent. You know, and I didn't know that existed, you know. So Jim, I mean, incredibly proud man, would wake up really early in the morning. He wanted to get up before anyone else, because he would shake violently, like you wouldn't believe. He would cough up blood in the morning, so it was very distressing for him, very distressing for us when we saw it for the first time. And the cure for that, sadly, was that he would have a can of this really strong lager. You know, and you sitting there at the breakfast table watching someone drink, and you can smell it. And
we've got a clip.
It's unbelievable.
Here you go.
Jim might be getting used to life at Colin and Justin's.
Do you think I put a bit too much bubble bath in this?
But there are some routines from his life on the streets that he has to stick to.
Do you mind if I get a beer?
A beer?
Yeah.
For breakfast? Aye.
Yeah.
But there's a cold one in the fridge.
Yeah.
Aye. No, help yourself.
Thank you very much.
Despite the dangers of his heavy drinking, 2 decades of alcohol abuse means that Jim's body can't function without it.
Are you hungry?
Not particularly. I've just asked Colin if it's okay if I have a beer.
You can have what you want, yeah.
Because I'm feeling a little bit.
Yeah, well, listen, let's sort that out.
He almost seems embarrassed there to ask for
he
that.
is,
That he
know?
knows you needs it, you know he needs it.
Yeah,
you can tell he's like, this isn't right to be having beer for breakfast.
He didn't want to do it, but the doctors that we worked with said, look, he has to do it. And we had to act on the advice that we were given by the medical teams with whom we worked. Otherwise, we would have undermined his ability to get better. And it changed our lives, you know. And so I don't want to be selfish and say I gained from it, but I did, because I learned so much about the homeless community. I learned that people become homeless for a multitude of reasons, and very often those reasons aren't self-inflicted. But when you get yourself into such a devastating state of collapse, it's really difficult to escape.
Well, an incredibly long road to recovery, but I mean, you say that very difficult for you guys, untrained, to help him in any great deal. What you did do is you you helped him with an ambition that he had. He'd always wanted to go in a helicopter.
and
it's a little thing to be able to do for someone.
It is, but then I mean, it says making memories, you know, is really important, you know, because all he would talk about were the negative things in his past, you know, how his family failed him, how he'd been on the street, how he was dependent, how he was bipolar, and there wasn't a lot of positivity coming from him, you know. So we were thinking, well, anything we can do to actually try and give him some kind of like positive experiences in his life, show him that actually life is worth living, you know. And I think you have to give people values so that they then will act on it and think, well, actually, I want to rescue myself, I want to get myself out of this.
Have you kept in touch?
Oh, you can't not keep in touch, Phil, because we spent 2.5 weeks with him in our home and then some ongoing filming thereafter. We speak to Jim whenever we can. He has our number, he calls us. We spoke to him yesterday. We've spoken to him regularly.
And you helped set him up with a
deposit
on an apartment
we did, but then that was one of the things that comes out of the programme, you know, that if you're actually on the street and you think, actually, you know what, I want to deal with this situation, I'm going to draw a line here and I'm going to get back on the ladder of life, you know, get back into society, it's almost impossible, you know. So we phoned round local authorities to try and get him local authority housing. They were all way oversubscribed. You couldn't get onto the lists because he didn't have a local connection. And actually, he told us that he could go to any office and say, like, hello there, I'd like to get a house here, and they would give him money to then go to the next town. So he actually used that as a way of transporting himself around Britain, unbelievably. And then obviously he doesn't have the money, he doesn't have references to get a private landlord, you know, so you're kind of stuck.
Well, thank goodness he found you guys.
Well,
he was very lucky to find you.
He was. I mean, for us, it was never intended as Pygmalion or My Fair Lady. Our premise wasn't to take him in, polish him, and send him out into the world. Some of those things happened as a consequence because he needed to look different. He told us that he wanted to look different. He'd lost all his teeth. We found a brilliant dentist called Philip Friel in Scotland who very charitably assembled new dental work for him so he could feel confident and smile again.
Well, the programme is Home is Where the Heart Is. It's tonight and it's at 9 on ITV1, and thank you both very much for
Our pleasure. Thank you for having us in.